Hello.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So
Okay.
I think we can begin
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Do I repeat?
Yes, please.
Do you want me to repeat it?
Okay, yes, please.
Do you repeat the question? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Do you want me to repeat the?
Yes.
Hello?
Okay, please. Yes, come with it. Yes.
Okay. I just said that the elections has come and gone, and a winner has been determined. We just want to know your experiences during the election with regards to the conduct on the part of the regulatory bodies, the INEC, the police, and of course, the political parties, how they influenced the elections. You know, your experience and your views on the election that just took place.
Okay. Talking about my experience, I realized that there was this voters' apathy. I tried to, within my own community, my interaction with people showed that they were not particularly interested in the elections. We didn't have this mass turnout of people coming out like we did in the presidential elections. People are generally of the view that their votes did not count in previous elections, and because their votes did not count, they are not interested in voting this time around. But that's notwithstanding, some persons still defied the rains, despite the weather. People still came out to vote. You understand? But generally, we had cases of the military presence of the police. And I would say that the conduct of the people was generally peaceful during the elections. But then I noticed the issue of vote buying. I mean, a lot of persons, some persons were giving 10,000, 5,000 in different polling units. You get, I know I got a call from some of my friends who were observers in some of the polling units that they were giving money. So that's one of the issues. People were really giving money for the elections to vote. And for me, if you ask me about my view, I think that that is not a good one for a country where we say we want change. I mean, looking at the present economic situation in the country, how much can somebody give a particular person? Things are extremely expensive, and then somebody is receiving 10,000 naira to buy his or her conscience. And in the next 4 to 8 years, I don't know what 10,000 would serve the person, especially in today's economy. So that's by the side. And then we have several other issues that are also arising. For instance, even before the elections, people complained about the person who was an INEC commissioner that is related to a big political wig. And for example, for me, there's this oath of neutrality, for instance. Oath of neutrality for INEC officials. In other words, they should not be affiliated to any of the political parties or any person in power. In advanced times, when you are being fingered or being related to any political party, that is a ground for you to resign. It's a ground for you to step aside and allow things to be done in the interest of the ordinary man. So those are the issues basically that arose during the elections. And now you find the two parties. The party that won would naturally be jubilating and rejoicing that everything was perfect, everything was regular. And then for the party that lost, that is parties that lost the election, that is a PDP and Labour Party. Naturally, they have the view that the election was marred by irregularities. Now, the Electoral Act is there. There are several provisions in the Electoral Act. And I am thinking that, of course, at the end of the day, aggrieved parties would go to court. So some of all these issues would arise. And the confidence in the judiciary would also arise, it will be another opportunity for the judiciary to portray itself as empire. So that's basically what I have to say about the elections.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam. Voters' apathy, you have talked about vote buying, and of course, voters' apathy will be occasioned by lots of content. We are trying to interrogate the system itself this night, and without the system, it definitely will not work. We'll look at the system, then we'll also look at this vote buying, which was facilitated by the political parties. Now, what do you think we can do to arrest all of this going forward? We have the Ondo state election around the corner. We have the Anambra state also upcoming. We don't want these things to repeat themselves. So what are your thoughts? What do you think can be done to improve voters' participation and to also check the political parties in these areas of vote buying?
Okay. If you look at Section 2 of the Electoral Act, it talks about the responsibilities of INEC, and one of the responsibilities of INEC is to carry out effective education, that's civic education. It means they have a responsibility to enlighten the persons in the streets about their rights and what's the ordinary ought to do. Now, I think it still boils down to the ordinary man in the street. A lot of persons are of the view, some persons are of the view that the present economic situation is what has driven the citizen, because I'm looking at it from the citizen's perspective, to even accept whatever is being offered to buy their votes. I mean, for me, for example, how much can you offer to buy my votes? You understand? So I think it's a complex issue. It's really, really complex. And I think that is a tall task that will not be addressed overnight. I think it has to be with constant education. Constant education. Now, people, if for example, you have people just tell you, okay, if they give me money, I'm going to vote for the party who is going to give me money. Now, if the citizens can come out and say no to vote buying, I'm sure that they will be left with no other alternative than to do the right thing. Like I said, it's still a tall order. It still has to do with still trying to enlighten the people. Let me speak very practical here. Now, somebody who can barely afford one meal in a day, has not eaten for that day, and is being given 10,000 naira. I mean, that sounds attractive to say, okay, 10,000 naira, I can buy one rubber of gari and that will take my family. You understand? So I think it's really, really a tall task. It's a tall task. I have to be very honest about it. And I don't see it being totally eradicated, except there are very, very strong efforts that are going to be made to address this issue of vote buying. For example, Nigerians are very sensitive persons. During the presidential elections, we saw a united Nigeria. Or let me talk about Edo State, because I didn't go to any other state apart from Edo State. I didn't travel anywhere. We saw a group of persons who were very determined, who were resolute to say enough is enough. We want a better Nigeria. Because they want a better Nigeria, you saw them come out in solidarity for Peter Obi. And what happened afterwards? The whole thing about the whole movement just fizzled out. So, like I said, it's not just going to be magic overnight. It's not going to be magic overnight. If we can have, for example, it's going to be a long-term thing, not just now. If we can have this education like sinking into the minds of the persons, the ordinary man in the streets, that is my emphasis. You understand? Because speaking from the political class, they are of the view that they have the power, but power in reality belongs to the people. And so if the people are enlightened that this power belongs to them, then they will see the reason to begin to do the needful and say no to vote buying. That's my take.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight on that. But again, if you take it from this point, we do all the education we have to do, we get the people ready for this process. Now, don't forget, there's also the issues of the experiences that happened during the same election of manipulations. There were evidences of manipulations here and there. For instance, where you have Bubaha mentioned, Oredo mentioned, Ego mentioned, where the results that was on the IREV was different from the results pronounced by INEC. So how do we reconcile that? As a matter of fact, we actually had a situation where the camp of PDP was jubilating alongside the camp of APC also jubilating until INEC made this pronouncement. These manipulations, how do we manage that? Even the people now.
Okay. Well, it's these manipulations. Then it will not be a matter of proof. You understand? For the judiciary, for the courts, because all these we are talking about, we are looking at where is it going to end? Where are we going to end? Like, what's going to be the end result, the end of all these? Now, I am looking at a situation where if we are saying the judiciary, yes, is going to be the ultimate umpire, it means that they are going to rely on whatever evidence that is going to be available to them. You understand? But if I want to tell you about my view, I'm looking at a long-term situation. What long-term situation am I looking at? I am looking at the possibility of electronic voting that can be devoid of manipulations. Or even if we say it's going to be, at least that's where manipulations will be very minimal. I'll give you an example of the Nigerian Bar Association. Now, for some years now, the Nigerian Bar Association is one of the biggest organizations in Africa. And they have been able to entrench a procedure for elections that have been generally fair and just, that in the comfort of your room, you can vote. You vote, and at the end of the day, everything is automatically, you just find out that everything is done seamlessly without stress. So I am of the view that even though that may take time, but that should ultimately be our goal. I'm presently doing a research on how we can ensure a more effective and reliable electoral process in the country. Except we have an electoral process that is seamless, that is devoid of vote buying and of these manipulations, then of course, except we have that kind of arrangement, it will get to a situation where people will not even want to vote again. I had an interaction with a very senior colleague who told me that he would never in his life go and vote again. That after being in the race,
We have lost our guest. Let's hope that she'll be able to join us back. Okay, our guest is back. Madam, can you hear me? Hello, madam. Please confirm that you can hear me. Your mic is muted. If you can hear me, kindly unmute your mic and confirm.
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
I can.
Okay, that's fine. So you can continue.
Yes.
Please continue.
Yes. Okay. So I'm talking about a situation where, because of the nature of our electoral process, where they brought about IREV. Okay, at the end of the day, we have conflict here and there in results. Like you said, jubilating. I was also confused at some point who actually won the elections, because you hear both parties rejoicing. So at the end of the day, we should, at this point, I am thinking that for a government that is serious-minded, for a government that is responsive, for a government that is sensitive to the needs of the people, it is very important to entrench an electoral process that will be acceptable to the people. Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about all this justice, we're talking about the electoral process, the real test to my mind is the ordinary man in the streets. Does he have confidence in the process? So if the ordinary man has no confidence, then we should be very practical. Then it means that government has to be take practical measures to ensure that the ordinary man in the street is comfortable, is confident in the electoral process. And what am I suggesting? I'm suggesting that in the long run, for example, the government can begin to put in place a system that will bring about electronic voting, such that in the comfort of your room, you can vote. And then you will be sure that everything will be done seamlessly. Now, this will put spade to the issues of violence, for example, and the issues of people having doubts about the electoral process. Because as it stands now, take it or leave it, the average man in the street is still thinking that, oh, because of these manipulations, some persons are of the view that they may not even go and vote in subsequent election. So like I said earlier, I said under Section 2 sub A, for example, of the Electoral Act, that INEC has a responsibility to conduct voter and civic education. I've said that earlier. And then to promote knowledge of sound democratic election processes in the country. So I keep saying that it is not something that can be done overnight. For me, if you ask me, it means that the government has to be serious enough. There has to be that political will to say we want to do the right thing. I know that it was the late President Yar'Adua who came in as president then, the then president, and then he set up an electoral committee, and he agreed that the election was marked by irregularities. He agreed that due to the irregularities, there was need for us to sanitize the electoral process so that we can have a better system that people can really trust. So that's my take on that.
Okay, well, thank you so much. But the challenge would be now, for instance, what we already have on ground now. At the end of the day, at the point of collation, we are expected by the provision of the electoral law to have a comparison of what is coming from or what is being collated alongside what is uploaded on the IREV. Now, just like I said now, at the point of making the announcements of the winner, there were obvious differences, discrepancies between the results on the IREV and the results being announced. You know, yeah, when you talk about electronic approach for the MBA, who are a professional body, but here we are politicians. Do you think this is to effect this change and allow us to have a free and fair election from the way they conduct themselves? Do you think so?
You said, do I think that what?
Do you think these politicians who are in charge now are willing to allow Nigerians have free and fair election, knowing that even with the system in place now, we can still have a free and fair election. But the way they go about all of these things, for instance, Anambra State was expected to have their local government elections today, but the same old story, no ballot paper, no material, no elections held. But at the end of the day, you are going to have winners of that election. So do you think these people are actually willing to allow the electorate take charge of these processes and allow democracy to play?
Yes, the stark reality is saying it the way it is that this present government lacks the political will to do the needful. That's the truth about it. And that's why, for me, when things like this happen, what do? We still look up to the courts. The aggrieved parties will now ensure that they put their house in order. They put their house in order by ensuring that they get their evidence intact, put everything in place, and go to court. So all these ones we're even saying, and then we're discussing, at the end of the day, the court is the final arbiter based on the available evidence. Because if we have confidence in our judiciary, it means that, well, I'm aggrieved as a political party, for example, I'll say, okay, we'll go to court. And then at the end of the day, if it's upturned, that will also send a signal. And that will also make the people to say, okay, we have confidence. I remember that the former governor of Edo State, Oshomole, came on board when election was upturned. So he benefited from the judiciary. The people benefited from the judiciary because he was the man of the people at that moment. So even though these things are being manipulated or may be manipulated, and then you have evidence, it's not just enough to say it. We have evidence, of course, to say, okay, there's a conflict between what was collected and what IREB is provided. Then the ultimate arbiter is the courts. So when you can prove irregularities, you go to the courts and then get justice.
Okay, so well for that. Yes, so well for that. But my concern now will be the people are actually dissatisfied with the system and the response level is quite low. And in the same vein, the people also don't tend to have confidence in the final judgments of the court. Is that not part of what is affecting the whole system? What do you think?
Yes. I agree with you. I agree with you that it's part of the problem. But if you ask me to say my views very starkly, the judiciary still remains the hope of the common man. Because at the end of the day, if we take away the judiciary, it means that life will be nasty, brutish, and short. So if out of 10 instances, maybe judiciary has done well in some instances, has not done well in some instances, for me, that's not enough to still throw away the judiciary. We still have to keep pushing until someday something is done, until someday we get it right. We have to keep pushing. It means that for those aggrieved parties who are going to go to court, it means that they should ensure that they do their homework. You understand? You know, justice is a double-edged sword. They should ensure that whatever they are doing, whatever evidence they are gathering, they are doing the needful. Pre-election matters, post-election matters, they ensure that they cover all loopholes so that at the end of the day, there's no room for the courts to say, well, I agree with this, I don't agree with. There will be no room for the courts to turn the other way around. So for me, I just think that despite the dissatisfaction, what's the alternative then? Then what are we saying if we say we don't have confidence in the courts? We can't sit down at home and fold our arms and say, I won't get judgments. Never, never. We can't sit down and say, okay, no, because I'm not going to get justice, I will not go anywhere. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep pushing. And keep going to courts, keep going to courts. Let it be on record. If at the end of the day, the justice we still don't get, let it also be on record. Let it be on record, because sometimes it is not just what we say. It is you see the Lady Justicia. She's invisible. Like you see her eyes are closed. She wasn't there when both incidents happened. When all the incidents happened, so she gives judgment based on the balance of probabilities in civil cases or beyond reasonable doubt in criminal cases. So in electoral matters like this, we know that we don't have a choice than to keep trusting the judiciary until we get what is right. We should not give up. We should not give up. For example, there are some provisions, for example, in the Electoral Act that people are already pushing for change. I know that the Electoral Act, I think section 26 of 1 thereabout, talks about the oath of neutrality of electoral officials. To what extent can we say that INEC is indeed independent? Is that not a ground? How many persons went to court to say, okay, I am of the view that INEC may not be independent because there's evidence to show that a particular person is related to a particular person. And then you go and get probably an injunction restraining this person from playing this role in this election. You understand? So there are so many aspects to it, so many ramifications to it. So many, except we're not going to, like I keep saying, we're not going to take bow and arrow, we're not going to take guns in our hands. We still have to be civil in our approach. And thankfully, the elections, for example, the aftermath of the elections, you can see that there was relative peace. I know that my neighbor told me that she wasn't going to go to work the following day on Monday after the elections, that she was going to watch and see whether anything will happen. But everything was peaceful. So we still, like I said, keep pushing. We don't give up. Even when we speak on air, you can come out and say, okay, I've been speaking all my life. I've been doing my best. I've spent my time. I've written many papers. I've spoken at different fora. I've made several suggestions. You can't begin to continue to say that because you have said that before, you are not going to do anything, or you are going to stop talking. You're not going to stop talking because what you have said before, nothing was done about it. You have to keep talking. You have to keep pushing until we get it right. There's no room for giving up. That's my take.
That's quite encouraging. Well, as of today, a winner has been declared. The election has come and it has been won.
Yes.
So we have a governor-elect for Edo State. Now, as we look forward to the swearing-in ceremony, what is your expectation from this new government? For instance, it's actually a complete change of party, considering the fact that different political been in governance, and like as is in our custom, you see when different political party come in like this, all the projects that were on before are abandoned and new projects are started, not considering that this that were going on were for the benefit and in the interest of the people. And you that is coming in, you are expected to come and serve it. What do you think we should expect from this new government?
Okay. First of all, this government, if you ask me to express my very candid view, is coming on the platform of a political party that a lot of persons are not comfortable with. For example, take it or leave it, there's economic hardship. People can barely feed. Our roads are bad, there's no lights, so many things are going wrong. So this government has a huge task. So much is expected of this government. It means that the government, I am sure he already has his plans, his blueprints, has a responsibility to stick to the provisions of the Constitution. For example, the security and welfare of the state is the primary purpose of government. Now, by that provision of the Constitution, it means that security can be perceived from different perspectives. I have looked at the word security, and I've expanded the meaning of security to include not just a feeling of being secured, to also include things like social security, food security, economic security. So security on all sides. Government has a responsibility to cushion the present hardship that is plaguing the states. So in other words, we expect that the government would extend hands of fellowship. The present Edo State government elect would ensure that it sets up a cabinet of technocrats who are able to bring the needed change that will transform the state to better heights, so that we can say of a truth that Edo State will now become a symbol, will now become an example for other states to see. So it's a tall order to ensure that our roads are fixed, that the roads are not abandoned, the roads that were started by the previous administration, the roads are completed, and that's to ensure that the needful is done in the interest, like I always say, of that ordinary man in the streets, so that that man in the streets can have access to good road, and access to employment, and access to basic amenities of life that will make life meaningful. And today you find a situation where, look at the medical aspect, look at the health sector, for example, you find a situation where our doctors and nurses are running out of the country, there's serious brain drain, and we are saying that government has a responsibility to ensure, they just say government has a responsibility to ensure that there are better conditions for employment, and these people are encouraged to stay back in the interest of the state. So it's not an easy task. It's not a task that will be done overnight, but the government has a responsibility to hit the ground running by ensuring that even within the first 100 days in office, that these issues are addressed. By now, I mean, he should just close his eyes and say, okay, this is the Edo State dream that I want in the next 4 years, in the next 1 year. This is what I want to have achieved in the next 1 year. Like, have a timetable for yourself. Like, 1 year, this is what I will achieve at the end of this year. At the end of the second year, this is what I would have achieved. And then if there's that kind of plan, that kind of structure, we can then begin to hope that we would have a better Edo State. Let's not forget that power is transient, and what will you be remembered for? That is what should guide our actions. That is what should guide our thoughts. I always say, nobody lives forever. So the little time that you have, make a meaningful impact. You have been given power. Power is now in your hands. How are you going to use that power in the interest of that common man, so that life will be better? I always say that you can't drive 2 cars at a time. You can't stay in more than a room at a time. So if we have all these basic things at the back of our minds, all we should strive for is to ensure that life is better for the average man.
Thank you very much, madam. We want to encourage questions from the audience. Anybody has questions for our guest this evening in the house? While we are waiting for questions from the audience, I want to quickly ask you, madam. You see, the major of the challenge we have in our politics is the issue of godfatherism, which there has been so much fight with to eradicate. But what we see today is even those that said they have come to abolish godfatherism are the ones that are playing godfatherism today, which actually was some of the complications in the Edo State elections, running up to the elections. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this godfatherism can actually be eradicated?
Godfatherism can be eradicated for somebody who is determined, for a leader who is determined to do the right thing. Yes, it can be eradicated. It's sometimes there are a lot of politics is very complex. There are a lot of intrigues involved. I don't want to begin to delve into that. I'm not even an expert in politics, but I'm just expressing my views that for somebody who wants to do the right thing, my take, for the past couple of few minutes I've been talking about the ordinary man in the streets. I mean, if our focus is how can we do things to better the ordinary man, then it means that we should dispense with godfatherism. And that comes in because that comes in some instance where you feel, okay, this person played a key role, is my godfather, played a key role in my election. And because he has played that key role, it means that I have to always do his bidding. I have to always dance to his tune. Should that supersede the interests of the common man? I mean, even when you have gotten the power, it will now be time for the Edo State government to say, okay, no, I am on my feet. I am now in charge. I am now in charge. I have the baton in my hands, and I would ensure that I do the right thing and act in consonance with the provisions of the Constitution, and I act in tandem with the ultimate yearnings of the ordinary man in the streets. So talking about whether it can be eradicated, it can be eradicated if there is a firm resolve to do so. It's just like a situation where you say, for instance, maybe, for instance, a man, sorry I have to use this analysis, but it just came to my mind. And maybe a young man has trained a young girl, and he has trained her through school. He has paid her fees, and she's not a graduate, and probably the man is not a graduate. And then she wakes up one morning and says she's no longer interested in the man. That sounds like a funny analysis, but it's the only remedy that is available is probably you want to sue for breach of contract to marry and all that. But then again, you can stamp your feet and say, okay, this is what I want, and this is what I want. Okay, you have helped me, fine, thank you. But what happens to the interests of the people? Or in other words, I even thought you were helping me because you know that I have the capacity to transform the states. I mean, any other thing apart from interest of that person in the street for me does not matter. There are bound to be political issues. Like I told you, politics. There are several issues. People have their views, for example, about maybe this segment of the state needs to come and rule this other segment so that there will be fairness and equity. I look at capacity. For example, if I'm bringing somebody that has capacity, that should be the primary goal. Who has that capacity? We're looking at the big question is, who has the capacity to transform the state to that enviable height that we have always looked forward to, that enviable height that we have always dreamt about? So for me, godfatherism, no. It's a no for me. And at this point, we should just be trashing key issues on how we can make Edo State a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. That was interesting. The line of thought. Dr. Masha, you can unmute your mic and ask your question, please.
Yes, good evening, madam.
Good evening, sir.
All right. Yes, actually, it's a pleasure having you on the seat tonight, and we're actually being educated out of your knowledge and your opinions. But you see, I still have rather some few questions I'd like to ask. So you just give us a bit of your insight about it, because like we see what is going on in the electoral rights and the conduct of election primarily governed by the Electoral Act 2022. The outlines provisions to ensure free, fair, and credible elections are key relating to vote buying, partisan involvement of security agents, and the rights of voters under the Act. Now, you said things about the judiciary because, well, it is right and proper that that's the end of the road for any extrajudicial acts or wrongs or persecution or judgment judiciary. That's what I'd like to put here now is that if the judiciary actually is not biased by relationship with the present government or government, by connivance, as in by appointments, I don't know how much, the implications will increase or determine how litigations or cases about vote buying in Nigeria that will make it stop. Because I know it's illegal, and in the Nigerian Electoral Act, Section 121 of the Electoral Act 2022 specifically criminalizes the practice of offering financial inducement or any material benefit to voters. Both the giver and the receiver of such inducements are liable to persecution. Punishment for vote buying includes fines and imprisonment. Now look at Section 121(1). It is an offense for any person to directly or indirectly give or agree money, gifts, or any benefits. Penalty. Just look at the penalties. If found guilty, 500,000 naira or imprisonment for up to 12 months. I now ask, even in the presence of the security agents, if they know the law, and they know they want the citizens to abide by that same law, have they on their own unilaterally arrested, persecuted anyone, not because he's a victim of circumstance, but because he was seen and arrested for that act? That question goes to the judiciary, where you are part of or where you are, aligned with. That is one. Two, in Section 29(3) of the Electoral Act prohibits the use of security forces to influence election results, to coerce voters. Security agents are meant to ensure peaceful voting environments and not interfere in the electoral process or be used as a tool by any political party. It comes back to where INEC, in the collation center, you will now be asking, what were the security agents doing in the collating center? Were they securing the votes or the results after it has gotten into the collation centers? Now, the question I ask, who is checkmating the security agents when they are doing that bidding? And I want you to just answer this one before I move further, because your questions to me from my end is about 5. Let me hear what you say from your own opinion. Thank you.
Okay. About 5, I would really have loved to take down the questions. I would really have loved to put. Okay. Let me address the issue of you made reference to Section 121 of the Electoral Act 2022, and you talked about the act of vote buying. we have to say it the way it is. In criminal cases, we know that for those that prosecute criminal cases under Section 4 of the Police Act, they are the ones that are empowered basically with the task of arresting or prosecuting criminal offenders. Now, talking about the judiciary, I would like to state that in criminal cases, proof is beyond reasonable doubt. In other words, you have to prove every criminal allegation beyond every
Our guest has been thrown out. Josh is having network challenges. Please, let's wait for her to come on.
Can anybody hear me? The network is terribly bad.
So, Masha, I can hear you, but our guest is not in the house. She has been thrown out by network. So we just exercise some patience to see if she can access the room again.
All right.
Gentlemen, here we are. We are supposed to conclude the program by 9. But with this situation, what do we do? Kevin Abrifo. Network is throwing everybody out.
Yeah, you just bring it to abrupt end. I think we've had enough so far. That's fine. I think it was an interesting session anyway. I think it's enough so far.
We'll close it again.
Well, I think we can close because it's 3 minutes to 9 now. This meeting is supposed to end at 9 p.m. So my suggestion is let's because it's already time for us to formally bring the meeting to close.
Thank you, everyone. Because of network challenges, we'll bring this program to a close. We hope to have Dr. Barrister Juliet Aimienrovbiye again on the show. So until some other time, it's good night to everyone.
All right, good night.